Hi, everybody. It's Attorney Jo Belasco of Wind Horse Legal PLLC. Welcome to my equine law podcast, Horses and the Law. We're going to be discussing how the law impacts horses, horse people, and horse businesses. I've been a horsewoman for more than 40 years. I've been an attorney for almost 30 years, and I've been a horse professional for almost 20 years. So join me today to learn how equine law can be a tool that helps you in your personal horse life and your professional horse life. Hello, hello, and welcome to the inaugural podcast of Horses and the Law. I'm glad that you're joining me today. I'm going to try and make these podcasts interesting and really applicable to your life as a horse person. So I thought I would start the podcast series by talking about what is equine law. And I get this question a lot. I get it from clients. I get it from people I simply talk to when I say I'm an equine lawyer. And I even get it from other attorneys. And the reason for that is that there aren't many equine lawyers. There are several hundred of us in the country. And equine law has been around for a while. It's been around for a few decades. But it just hasn't gotten the notice that other areas of law have. So what is equine law? Well, you're probably familiar with areas of law such as criminal law. We've all watched the television shows, the movies, read about criminal law in news sources, newspapers, online, all of that. You're probably familiar with an area of law like personal injury. You may be familiar with estate planning if you've had your will or trust drawn up. But equine law is a little different. What equine law does is it takes different areas of law and applies it to horses, applies it to horse people, and applies it to horse businesses. In my practice, for example, I work with various different areas of law, but a lot of my clients are involved in the horse community. So I'm going to go through some of those areas so you know exactly what I do as an equine attorney. Perhaps one of the biggest areas that I am involved in is contracts. I know that as horse people, we love to do things with a handshake and we love to trust other horse people because let's face it, we are involved with horses because we love them. We love what we do with them. We love how people respond when they're around horses. But we really do need to have contracts because, as I tell clients, it may not be the person you're dealing with that you actually have to make sure abides by the contract. So let's take a liability form. If you have a liability form and somebody gets injured, that person may, for example, be in the hospital in a coma, and you may have to deal with their family members or you may have to deal with the insurance company. So it's always good to have as much protection as possible, and contracts give that to us. The most popular contracts are obviously the release of liability. We're all familiar with that contract. There's also breeding contracts, boarding barn contracts, lease contracts, sales contracts, contracts for clinicians. I mean, the list goes on and on. And the way I actually look at contracts is it's an agreement between two or more people or companies. And what we're trying to do is say, here is our perspective on our agreement. Because lots of times, even with friends, we'll agree on something. And then when there's a problem, we come back to it and realize, oh gosh, we weren't on the same page at all. And that can obviously cause problems. So contracts are just a huge important part of being in the horse world. And they can be super specific. That's usually a good way to have them. They are really an agreement between people. So they should work for the people and companies that are involved in them. And they don't necessarily have to end up in court. We can also put things in them that have to do with mediation. It doesn't have to be this adversarial position from the very beginning. So contracts are a really, really huge part of equine law. Another huge part of equine law is actually estate planning. And the reason it is such a big deal is because under every state law, horses are considered property. Now, obviously, we don't think of them as property, but that's how they're classified, at least at the present moment in 2020. What that means is that if you are incapacitated and when you die, your horses are treated like the rest of your estate. And when people hear the word estate, they tend to think of a big mansion. They tend to think of a lot of property, really expensive cars. But what an estate really is the assets that you have. So the car you own, if you own a home, all the things you own, your computer, your tack, your clothes, Breyer horse models, all of that, that is your estate. And horses are a part of that. So let's first take the issue of incapacity. And I'll go through all these in way more detail in later podcasts. But if you're incapacitated, no one actually has the legal authority to take care of your horse or to pay for your horse to be taken care of. So, especially now, unfortunately, with COVID being so rampant and it being such a mysterious illness that people literally are on ventilators in a few days in some situations, it's really important to have documents so that if you're incapacitated, someone, for example, can go into your checking account and pay for your horse's board and pay for your horse's feed, horse's vet care, whatever needs to be taken care of. And there are horse trusts that can be put together that actually take care of those situations. Of course, when you pass away, if your horse is still around, you're going to want to make some sort of you want to make sure your horse is taken care of at that point. And if you don't have your horse mentioned in your will or your trust specifically, then the person who is your executor or your trustee can basically dispose of your horse the way they do dispose of your car or your truck. So one of the things I do is I talk to my clients and I say to them, we really want to think about how do you want your horse taken care of? Who do you want taking care of your horse? And horse trust can be really as specific as you want. Specific food, specific blankets. It's really a way to take care of your horse more as a friend, a partner, a family member than you take care of your car. And some people really love their car, so they make sure their car is taken care of too. But you know what I'm getting at. We really want to take care of our horse partners because they make our lives they enrich them so much. So estate planning is just a huge, huge area of equine law to make sure that our horses are taken care of. And you can also do things, such as I have a large Breyer horse model collection that my father, whenever he went on business travel, would get me a horse model. And that's something that's really special to me. So I want to make sure that that goes somewhere special when I pass away. I don't want somebody to just be selling them at a yard sale. And you may have a prize saddle or a prize painting, something that you want to leave to either a person or an organization because that's a part of your legacy. So these are all things that I talk about with my clients when we discuss estate planning. Another big area of equine law actually concerns businesses. And there's several different areas here. There's business law and there's trademarks and copyright, and there's even nonprofit law. So let's start with business law. When people want to get involved with horses as their business, it's generally a good idea for them to form a business. So one of the things I do is I both provide legal services and actual equine business consulting so that someone who wants to enter the horse professional business can choose the best business formation. They can understand what it means to have a business because we do all love horses. And we've got to realize, especially when dealing with the IRS, that if this is a business, we have to treat it like a business. So I really talk to my clients about what does that look like when their everyday lives, what does that look like with a business plan? How do you plan for that? How do you look at what you're going to provide? How are you going to provide it? So that's another area, is forming businesses. And I also form nonprofits because there's very specific ways both to form a state nonprofit and then the federal nonprofit, and then to make sure you're in compliance with the IRS. Because if you are not in compliance with your horse nonprofit, you can lose that nonprofit status, and there go your tax deductible donations. So nonprofits are also another large area, especially with horse rescues, wild Mustang sanctuaries, horse therapy. There's a whole range of horse nonprofits. The other big area of business that applies to businesses and to nonprofits, and even individuals can own these, are trademarks and copyrights. And those are not the same thing. A trademark protects your business brand. So generally people register a name, a slogan, or a logo. And you can also actually trademark really distinctive things, such as Tiffany has trademarked their distinctive color blue, and Law and Order has actually trademarked the chunk chunk sound that you hear in their television shows. A trademark makes sure that your brand is protected and no one else can use your brand. A copyright is for creative works. And a copyright is created as soon as you make a creative work, such as a book or a DVD. But to really be enforceable, you have to have not only registered for it with the Copyright Office, but gotten an approved registration. And that was a U.S. Supreme Court decision decided in 2019, actually, that said it has to actually be approved. So those are two really big areas. And especially when it comes to trademark, that can be a very tricky area for horse people. One, we always want to make sure someone doesn't have your specific mark or a mark that is similar to yours, because that may get may not get approved by the trademark office. And the trademark office also likes very distinctive marks. And the best example of this is Ariat Boots. The name actually comes from Secretariat. That's a great trademark because it doesn't describe what it's about. The trademark office does not like descriptions, so Red Horse Farm can be a difficult one to get a principal trademark, as it's called. So I talk to clients about what works for them, and I do explain the differences that you can still get trademark protection, but it's not going to be as good as other trademark protection. But again, it's better than nothing. And again, I'm going to explain all these in future podcasts, but I just want to give you a really big overview of all these areas of law that equine law actually touches upon. Um, so those are actually really the main ones. We do have obviously liability. And these can include cases where horses are injured when they've been out on a lease. They include people who have been injured in horseback riding accidents. They include vet malpractice. Those are the ones that people tend to really think about because obviously dealing with horses can be dangerous. And those may wind up in court. They may go to settlement. But those are issues that really aren't as widespread as people think. And I think people, when they think about equine law, probably think about that most because that kind of has more of a, I don't know, it sounds glitzier, oh, you're going to sue somebody because of what happened. But these other areas actually have a lot more clients, they have a lot more impact. If you think about your day-to-day life as a horse professional, do you have employees or are they independent contractors? There's a tax issue right there. So there's all these issues that come together, and they come together under the umbrella of horses, horse people, and horse communities. And I really, really love working in equine law because, as you've heard in my intro, I'm now 52 and I've been working with horses and around horses and riding horses since I was 6. And I've been a lawyer since 1993, and the law can really be fascinating. And it can also be a great tool. So people tend to be afraid of the law and lawyers, and I like to put my clients at ease and say, look, this is something we can use to make our lives better. We can make our horses' lives better. So let's go ahead and use it. And I've also been a horse professional for almost 20 years. So I have been a trainer, I have been a clinician, I have taught riding lessons, I've run a nonprofit horse program, I have worked as a barn manager, I have done all these things. So when someone comes to me and they want to talk about a contract they need, I know what to talk to them about. I know that a PPE nowadays, when people hear PPE, obviously, sadly, they think about wearing shields and masks and all of that. But I know when a horse person talks to me about PPE, they mean a pre-purchase exam. So this is something that a quote regular attorney is not going to even know to put in there. But I can think of all of these different parameters because I've been in the barn, so to speak, and I've been in the courtroom and I've been in the law books. So I really, really like being able to talk to horse people about that. And I think my clients, they've told me they really appreciate that they don't have to explain something to an attorney. So it's really great if you have a legal issue concerning your horse or you want to start a horse business or a nonprofit, that you find someone who does practice equine law, because we simply have an extra level, an extra layer of experience and knowledge that other attorneys don't have. And generally we love what we do because we love horses. So that's a big overview of equine law, and I'm going to be pulling all of these issues apart in podcasts. There's even the one issue I didn't address were legislative issues. So we see that with working to ban horse slaughter, working to ban soring. One of the big issues that I'm very interested in because I have Mustangs is the legislation that affects wild Mustangs and roundups and wild burros. So we have a lot to discuss. And if you have something specific you want to talk about, I can't address a specific issue that concerns you because we don't have attorney-client privilege with this podcast. But if you have something you want to know about, then feel free to send me an email at J-O, at windhorselegal.com, and I will look into it and see if it's something that would be really good on the podcast at some point. Generally speaking, these are issues that everybody who deals with horses has addressed at some point or is curious about. So thank you again for listening to the inaugural podcast. And if you have any questions, send me an email. And otherwise, I will see you next time when we discuss a more specific issue concerning equine law. Thanks very much. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Horses and the Law. Visit my websites, windhorselegal.com and horsesandthelaw.com, to learn more about the legal services I offer. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.